We spend decades of our lives optimizing for a single metric: accumulation. We operate under the assumption that amassing larger homes, premium brands, and higher-tier possessions will yield a corresponding increase in our personal happiness. Consider a specific wealthy man from a prosperous town. He achieved the absolute pinnacle of this physical comfort. He lived on several acres of manicured land, behind thick perimeter walls, relying on a dedicated staff of servants to handle every domestic task for him and his young son. Yet as he watched his son grow up surrounded by these absolute comforts, the father grew anxious. The boy had never experienced friction, lack, or the realities of life outside their estate. To fix this, the father engineered a specific field trip. He decided to take his young son deep into the rural countryside to live with an impoverished family. The goal was to expose the boy to intense physical poverty, so he would return home deeply grateful for his sprawling house and hired help. The father's perspective mirrors a common societal habit. We attempt to validate our life choices by looking at those who have less, using their lack of material goods as the primary scale for our own prosperity. The physical contrast between their worlds was immediate. They left a massive, walled-off fortress in the city and arrived at a small structure made of mud and brick, sitting entirely exposed and integrated into the surrounding fields. For 2 days, the rich man and his son lived the exact physical realities of their hosts. They ate simple meals cooked over an open wood fire and slept on thin mattresses placed directly on the floor. But the village possessed a different kind of density. The family kept 4 dogs that ran freely through the yard. With no artificial lighting to block the sky, the entire family sat outside together to watch the stars. A clear stream ran directly behind their home, providing constant ambient sound. Observing the thin mattresses and the simple food, the father felt completely satisfied. His plan was working. He focused on the physical poverty, missing the fact that his son was carefully watching the village's deep communal joy and shared laughter. The father saw an absence of expensive goods. The son observed a different economy entirely, one built on shared experiences, mutual reliance, and integration with the environment. Riding back in their comfortable chariot, the father turned to his son, eager to hear how the lesson had landed. He prompted the boy to acknowledge the poverty they had just witnessed and express gratitude for their own wealth. The son's response dismantled the father's entire outlook. He pointed out that while their family hired servants to wait on them in isolation, the villagers found actual joy in actively serving one another. The boy was comparing 2 different resource models. On the left, the wealthy family's assets, swimming pools, garden lights, and high walls, are finite and closed. On the right, the villagers tap into expanding networks, streams that flow forever, a sky full of stars, and neighbors who provide authentic security. The boy looked up and delivered his final conclusion. "Papa," he said, "thank you so much for showing me how poor we really are." We usually classify poverty as a low bank balance. The boy's realization suggests a different definition. True poverty is living isolated from a community, walled off from nature, and devoid of shared human purpose. The father sat in silence for the journey. When they reached their estate, the luxury he once took pride in felt sterile. Over the following months, he didn't just order the walls torn down. He began by spending his evenings on the porch with his son, prioritizing the simple act of presence over the management of his property. Parents will frequently attempt to manufacture gratitude in their children by pointing out how difficult life is for someone else. We use downward comparison as a teaching tool for appreciation, but children process value through a different lens. They naturally assign worth to undivided adult attention, shared games, and communal laughter, while remaining largely indifferent to brand names or the square footage of a house. A trust fund provides financial security, but a child who grows up watching a parent value human connection over constant consumption receives a blueprint for a meaningful life. Instead of checking a bank balance to see how a life is progressing, we can look at 3 specific areas of our lives that indicate actual prosperity. The first area involves auditing non-financial assets. Take inventory of exactly what you possess that cannot be purchased. Having your physical health and a few people who genuinely love you are assets that push money out of the equation. The second involves trading convenience for connection. We often use money to buy isolation, hiring others so we never have to interact with anyone. Instead of paying a premium to avoid people, look for ways to collaborate with your community to solve problems together. The final area is finding joy in the streams and stars. This means dedicating a small portion of every day to engaging with a natural, free element that requires zero consumption and zero spending to enjoy. Real richness is not a financial milestone waiting in the future. It is a state of connection, rooted in the people beside you and the world outside your window, available to you the moment you choose to see it.